Hello and welcome to this exploration of the life of one of our last students, William Carter Preston. William was a scholarship student, aspiring architect, and a fallen World War I soldier who had a bright future ahead of him but lost his life on the front. We would like to thank the family of William who brought his story to our attention and were able to provide us with excellent references, photographs and facts to build the life and eventual death of William Carter Preston. Born in 1893, William was one of 9 children born to Thomas and Sarah Preston. They lived at Fold Farm, Sawrey, just 2.5 miles from Hawkshead Grammar School. William was a bright boy, winning prizes at Sawrey School when he was 10 and a scholarship to Hawkshead Grammar School following an examination in religious knowledge when he was 13. The Sandys Scholarship originated from a Sandys family bequest from the 1700s and came from a descendant of the Archbishop of York, Edwin Sandys, the founder of the school. The purpose of this early Sandys Scholarship was to give financial assistance to local boys. A version of this scholarship is still running today. The Hawkshead Grammar School Foundation's main purpose is to provide grants to young people to assist their further education, vocational training, or entry into work. William was one of the last Sandys Scholarship students before the school closed in 1909. This photograph is of the Preston family in front of their home in Sawrey. William was about 7 or 8 at the time of this photo, so likely the boy on the right, next to his father. Here we have the record book detailing the last students who came to this school and were taught under headmaster R.M. Sampson. William's entry is 3rd from the bottom. Of the 15 boys documented on this page, 6 of them benefited from the Sandys Scholarship. Even though the school was losing popularity at this time, there were still students from as far away as Nottingham and London, as well as local boys. This record book shows us that student start dates varied throughout the year, not only starting in September, as it is now. And even as late as the 1900s, the ages of these boys ranged drastically, from 8 right up to 18. Some staying for just a few months and others for several years. We have in fact found William's names carved on one of the later Victorian desks. It is a prominent carving and makes us question who else's names are marked in the desks that we do not know about yet. William had carved his name multiple times across the desk, a sign of boredom perhaps, or like many students who came to this school, did he choose to leave several marks of his name in the hope that his name would be remembered. In 1909, the same year that the grammar school closed, a vacancy for a well-educated youth to join Walker, Carter and Walker, who were Windermere architects, was advertised and awarded to William. Walker, Carter and Walker was a practice that started in 1903 and began making a name for themselves by working on some prominent buildings throughout Cumbria. Most notable is Grisdale Hall, which is not very far from Hawkshead. Whilst Walker, Carter and Walker were building a name for themselves, William was starting to become interested in architecture too. This was likely due to building works that took place on his home for 2 estate cottages in 1909. From ages 15 to 20, William worked towards his architect qualification, which he passed in 1914. William likely took part in the planning for 2 particular new builds, the bank premises in Windermere for the Bank of Liverpool in 1909 and house overlooking Lake Windermere in 1912. His time with Walker, Carter and Walker would have been the starting point to a successful career as an architect with the experience he was able to gain with them. William was an excellent artist. This was likely developed at the grammar school, where, as part of their drawing examination, the students would follow drawing guides freehand. These drawing guides were from 1893 and were still used by the last students of the school, and you're able to see just how much William improved from simple but accurate line drawing whilst at school to detailed, realistic art whilst he was an apprentice architect. Even though he was only 18 when he drew this fleur-de-lis, he shows care and dedication in his work, which seems to have carried over onto his later life. In the 1911 census, William is noted as an architect student at the age of 17. We can see that whilst his parents were farmers, not all the children followed this same career path. Whilst the eldest, Thomas, did follow in his father's footsteps, William's older sister, Ellen, was a dressmaker's apprentice, and his 3 youngest siblings were all at school. In 1915, just after passing his architecture exam, William volunteered for the army. He was deemed fit for military service and joined the King's Own Royal Lancaster Regiment as a lance corporal. In 1916, he applied to become a temporary commissioned officer. For this application, he had to provide 3 references. One came from his employer, Walker, Carter and Walker. One for good moral character, which came from the then Vicar of Sawrey, Reverend McNally, and one for a good standard of education from his headmaster at the grammar school, R.M. Sampson. The reference from Walker, Carter and Walker is particularly thoughtful. It reads, Mr. William Carter Preston served with us as a pupil for 4 years. He displays the following qualities in a degree which is far above the Army's: decided resource, ingenuity and initiation, industry, unswerving application, willingness, method and reliability. His character is unsullied, his personality is attractive, and he will amply merit any confidence which is placed in him. A particularly poignant section is the ending paragraph, which reads, We shall follow his career with grateful and great interest, and will expect him to achieve an honourable measure of success. This is a case of a young man who had the whole world ahead of him, and could have achieved great things in his life. Sadly, on the 10th of April 1918, in Ploegstedt Wood, Belgium, he was recorded as missing in action. His men believed him to have been killed by sniper fire. However, it took almost a year for his death to be formally registered, which was required for war gratuity to be issued to his family. His last will and testament, which was written 3 years earlier, is as follows. In the event of my death, I give the whole of my property and effects to my mother, Mrs. T. Preston, for Fold, Far Sawrey, Windermere, Lancashire, with the exception of 6 testimonial sheets of drawing, which are to be given to the Messrs. Walker, Carter and Walker, architects of Windermere. He was only 24 when he was killed. On William's Rolls index cards, he is listed as a Lance Corporal in the Lancaster Regiment when he joined in July 1915, and moved on to the Border Regiment as a second lieutenant, where he was unfortunately killed in action. These Rolls index cards were sent to his mother at Fold Farm in 1920, 2 years after his death, along with his posthumous medals. William was awarded 4 medals for his sacrifice and bravery. The 1914-15 Monstar Medal was issued to British forces who served outside the UK between August 1914 and December 1915. The British War Medal, which was awarded to officers and men who served between August 1914 and November 1915, and he also received the Allied Victory Medal, which was issued to those who entered an area of active fighting. Finally, the Memorial Plaque Medallion was issued to the next of kin of all officers that were killed as a result of the war. Thank you everyone for coming to this talk. There are many more stories that are hidden in the carvings of the desks that we would like to be able to explore in the future. We never want to forget those that we have lost, or those who had the potential to do so much more, not just those that rose to prominence. It is your support that not only allows us to research our own history, but also allows the scholarship that William benefited from to continue to help young people in the ancient parish of Hawkshead continue their education and support their futures. We hope you have enjoyed these talks and the opportunity to explore our past students' lives in more depth. We would love to hear any feedback you might have or any subjects you would like any future talks to focus on, as we would love to run more of these webinar events.